some context around the CA Accelerator to start with, just to give you a little bit of framing for how the program operates, and it'll help help you understand kind of the journey that our two co-founders are going through. So, before we designed the program, we sat down to distill some key operational principles to make sure that we're able to really focus on our objectives. And number one, and perhaps no surprise, was that we really wanted to focus on customers and building products and investing in ideas that we felt strongly had real value with our customers and were solving their problems. We also wanted to make sure that we were investing responsibly. This is a VC portfolio. The projects and the products in the portfolio, they're all high risk. And they're exploring greenfield opportunities where there's often no one to follow, no example in the market. So we're kind of on our own, and realizing this, the failure rate on these incubations is going to be high. So we wanted to make sure that we never invested in an incubation ahead of really proving the potential of the idea at each stage. We also wanted to focus on velocity and rapid experimentation. We wanted to be able to pull as many great new ideas through the CA Accelerator process as we possibly could. And part of what we wanted to embed in the process as well was to always continuously learn. So no matter what stage an incubation is, we're always trying to, as an incubation, learn from our customers, from the market, from the feedback that we're getting, and to use that information, to use that learning as data to drive decisions, including when to potentially pivot, change direction, try something a little bit different. And last but not least, we wanted this to be a repeatable framework. So a well-defined, repeatable governance process that was able to dispassionately evaluate these incubations as they flow through, and make monthly, which is actually quite a high frequency given the amount of work involved, monthly reviews. We call 3P reviews, which stands for pivot, pause, or persist, where we're making investment decisions, and sometimes ones that require shutting an incubation down when we just don't see there being a path to success. But ultimately, our focus is to maximize the chances of an incubation success and delivering something of high value to customers. So I won't walk through all of this, but just to give you an idea of how we think about the process. So the horizontal axis is time, the amount of time that we invest in an incubation. The vertical axis is funding, how much we invest in a particular incubation. Everything comes in on a lean canvas on the left-hand side. So as the name implies, we borrowed heavily from lean startup best practices. So we try to keep things lightweight and efficient. So ideas have to be captured on just a single page, which sounds easy. It's actually much harder than doing some 30-page PowerPoint presentation. But it does keep things nice and neat and efficient. These ideas get evaluated by the Accelerator Angel team, and the ideas that come in with their founders. So we believe that the people with the idea are just as important as the idea itself. So ideas themselves. So people leave their day jobs, these founders and co-founders, and start working on this new incubation, this new startup idea. There are 2 lightweight seed stages. Really the focus there is making sure and getting validation that we've identified a problem that customers actually have. If we get the right signals that that's true, then we move to Series A, and that's where things start getting a bit more real, if you will, in that at that point we're trying to build an MVP. We're increasing our investment, building a small product development team to actually get a product out onto the market. And at that point, we're off and running and getting customer feedback and trying to get market traction and trying to get adoption of this product. And along the way, if we get traction, and that is an if, we then move to really trying to refine the product market fit to really have repeatable scale and to be able to validate that we've got a new nascent business that has real scale potential at CA scale. So if these incubations make it all the way through the pipeline, we have an exit, but the exit is unlike a regular VC exit. The exit is within CA, and it's specifically into our product organization to continue to scale up and achieve market maturity over time. So that's a brief synopsis of the process, but it'll help frame the discussion with our co-founders.
Is that last point 100% true? Because obviously during the iteration you may find it's not a perfect portfolio fit, but a valid market solution.
It's a great point, and we've actually discussed the edge cases for cases where there isn't a fit into an existing BU. There's always the possibility of having it be standalone and possibly the kernel of a new business unit. We've also discussed the possibility of spinning something outside the company. Ultimately, the goal is to generate business value, through generating customer value. So we're a little bit agnostic on how we achieve that, and we're happy to be flexible. But the primary goal is to exit into the product organization. So if there are no questions about the accelerator, I'm going to, yes?
Excuse me, how do you attract the startups? Because rightly or wrongly, you're not Google. You might not be seen sexy as compared to some other organisations. So are you looking to find the startups? Are they coming to you? I mean, how are you?
No, it's a great question. So this process is open to all CA employees. So you don't have to be in my organization or Iman's organization or any. You can be in marketing. You can be in sales. As long as you can fill out a lean canvas and it's an idea that when it gets evaluated, we think it has potential. It comes in with those founders. So we have a pretty broad surface area for attracting ideas, and we've been knock wood, but we've been fortunate to have a really exciting flow of ideas come into the program, and they really come from across the entire company. To your point, we're not Google, but we have created a program that has a lot of benefits in terms of staying within the under the corporate umbrella. If you've got a great idea and you want to do an external startup, you've got to go to VCs, you've got to raise capital. You have to leave your day job, and all of a sudden you're on your own. The founders who come in here, they don't have to leave leave the company. They don't have to take the high risk of potentially being out on the street. The program is run with the full support and within the structure of the broader CA corporation. And we've also provided incentives, a compensation structure, for startups that make it all the way through to have it be rewarding financially as well.
And I'm sure it must have.
To complement it, why did you not open this program to the startup externally of the CA?
So we've talked about that. So consider that within the realm of possibility. But we really wanted to focus on first capturing all these ideas that are within our company, and making sure that we were able to really take full advantage of everything that was within CA.
How many
But stay
ideas got
tuned on that.
generated? How many ideas got generated and how many became fruitful?
Yeah, that was my question too. What was the broad brush of the success? Right.
I would need to come back to you with the exact ratio of.
Approximately?
And I'm looking at Howard. You might have a better sense. So Howard actually runs the CA Accelerator.
Yeah, we've had about, again, don't quote me on the exact number, if I can get exact numbers out there, but we've had about 15 different ideas get accepted and go into the program. And
So how many came? Like, what's the ratio
Yeah.
of one lean canvases to one?
lead canvases, it's like on the order of 20% of things that get pitched versus things we accept into the program. And then we figure there's probably a 1 in 10 chance that they make it out the other side, roughly speaking.
It's actually rather high.
Yeah, no, we've been pleasantly surprised with both the quantity and the quality of the ideas that have flowed in.
So you have a customer focus from the very beginning,
Yes.
but you're also looking for the greenfield or disruptive innovations. And those can be contrary to each other, right? The old Steve Jobs never using a focus group because you wanted to bring a disruptive innovation, nobody knew what they wanted. So
Correct.
are you missing those, or are you not?
No.
Are you looking for more sort of things customers already need kind of thing?
We are actually looking for things that customers already need, but they may not know it. Because
That's the trick.
They
right?
may not know the art of the
So
possible.
you can't ask them what they need and have an answer with
They
them.
want a faster horse, right?
Right.
So part of the puzzle that we're solving is both understanding hidden pain points that customers may not be even aware of, and then explaining that there's a potential solution to a pain that they may not have been explicit about. It's kind of like, oh, I didn't know I had that pain and I didn't know I needed that solution. But we're certainly not asking customers to design products, because I think that's ultimately an unfair thing to ask customers. So there's a little bit of art and science in understanding pain points that customers may not explicitly even fully understand themselves.
So if I could just ask everyone to hold your questions till the end, because we're running a little bit behind, so we're just gonna finish this portion and then go into the research, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end. I
All right.
appreciate the time, thank you.
Andrew, so our first co-founder, here's Andrew. He'll explain everything there is to know about his startup.
Thanks, Otto. Hey everyone, how's lunch? Good. Everyone has some
There were no
energy?
waffles.
I know, right? Maybe breakfast tomorrow. I'll see what I can do. My name is Andrew Homeyer, founder of Waffles. It's fun to actually carry a title of founder within a giant company. One of the perks of actually creating a startup. We have a ton of freedom to build a business the way we see fit, and the support of people like Otto to actually make that happen. So we run product development, marketing, sales. Everything is actually on our small teams. We used to see a process where it makes sense, but we have a ton of freedom to actually change those processes to make sense for us too. So we're, of course, part of the Accelerator. I would describe the way that the CA funds different businesses as things that are where we think the puck will be tomorrow. And we, of course, validate with customers. Also things that are highly aligned with existing products and businesses that we already have. So earlier today, you heard from CA PPM and CA Agile Central about where they're heading in the industry. Of course, at Waffle, we care a lot about the way that the software teams work. So we're trying to be highly aligned with both existing products we have, but also where we see the future going. Anyone know where this quote came from?
Yeah, Marc Andreessen.
Marc Andreessen in 2011. We definitely know this is true, right? So software is in the world. We often use the saying that every company is a software company. So this is something that we've seen, and it's definitely true in the last 8 years or so. I'm not going to talk about the software, but the actual people building the software. I've been a full stack developer for 10 years now. No one looks shocked. I actually had to grow this beard to try to convince you. I've been developing for that long. So there's actually 22 million people just like me out in the world. We work inside large enterprises. We work in startups. We work in open source, sometimes funded by companies, sometimes just in our spare time. And oftentimes we're working as a team, right? So 2-3 of us, maybe 10 people, but we're also working with these product managers. I've actually learned to have a huge respect for product managers. If you're a developer, one of the worst things that ever happened to you is for you to build something that nobody ever uses. Really, really frustrating, because you put your soul into this thing, and then you find out that you wasted a ton of your time. So project managers are these roles in teams where they're helping a team understand the why, right? So they help a team understand who they're building something for, helping them figure out if this is the right time and for the right customer. And then it's up to the team to work together to figure out what that actually is and how they go about building it. So we use tools, project management tools. All of you have used several of these things, right? These tools are great for aligning a team to understand what they're actually building, what's the purpose behind it. The problem is, though, when we talk about developers need a little bit more. So as soon as you have something that's marked as in progress, it just sits there. It might sit there for a day, sit there for a week. That's okay, except you realize that you have to go ask that developer, hey, are you stuck? Do you need help? Are you blocked by anything? It's been sitting here for a couple days. Maybe you have like a process around it. Maybe you have a daily stand-up. You can actually have some culture around understanding where things are blocked. But I think there's a huge opportunity for us to actually help the way that developers track their status. Can't we do better? Can't we make project management work great for project managers, but also really well for developers too? That's our purpose at Waffle. We're all about empowering development teams by trying to automate the way they track their status, so they stay aligned more so with each other. So we do that by integrating deeply with an ecosystem. So we've started with GitHub. Really fun week for us, of course, Microsoft acquiring GitHub. So that's super thrilling. So GitHub has 28 million members, and through
Or it
GitHub,
did last week.
27 million this week. And through GitHub, we can integrate to a larger ecosystem, right? So because we integrate through GitHub, we get integrations to Travis CI, Jenkins, Circle CI, and a whole suite of other products where developers are living. So by integrating deeply in this ecosystem, we actually can expose the work that developers are already doing without asking them to do more work. Of course, you might imagine where we go next. GitHub has been a really great landing spot. Over 100,000 users have tried Waffle. Jira and Bitbucket make a lot of sense. Now with Microsoft, we might add a few more logos to this slide for where Waffle might go in the future as well. Just the beginning for us. So if you've never seen Waffle, this is what it looks like. I know I've met some of you at the CA World. So a few things have changed since then as well. Waffle might feel familiar to other project management tools you've used. You have things on a board, right? Different columns for your process. What you see here is actually things that developers actually care about. So you see deployment status. So you actually see when work has been deployed to a production or staging environment. You see continuous integration jobs. So when things are passing or failing or running, just at a glance across all of the different code repositories that your team works within, developers know exactly what the status is. What's better, it's not just for developers, right? It's those project managers that are wondering what's going on. This is one of our customers. This is actually a public repo on GitHub, so we can actually show you what they're doing live inside Waffle as well. So this is a project by the Department of Veteran Affairs. So this is actually seeing your tax dollars at work. They're actually doing stuff.
A few veterans might actually get help at long last.
There you go. So you can see that this team working in real life, they have different customized columns that make sense for their team. You can actually see real pull requests with real builds happening in real time with Waffle. What does the world look like without Waffle? So this is what you might see in some of the tool. You see a card, has a description, you see that Jacob's assigned to it, you gave it a point estimate, so 2 points, whatever that means. But it's stuck in progress, right? You have to go ask Jacob, you might send him an email or poke him in Slack, say, hey Jacob, is this done yet? We were really hoping to tell the customer today. And then Jacob says, oh yeah, I finished that 2 hours ago, I just forgot to log into my tool and moved to done. I'm like, darn it Jacob, I wish I had known. This is the world with Waffle. You actually don't have to go ask Jacob, you just know. This adds value to Jacob because Jacob can see in real time that he has one pull request against this shared component called domain with a passing test, and then he has a pull request for the API with a failing build. So he knows at a glance, looking at Waffle, that there's something that broke he needs to go fix before it's ready. And his project manager knows that too. Doesn't have to go ask Jacob, hey, is this thing done yet? Just at a glance, you know that work is still in progress. It's not good enough though just to expose what's really happening. That's really cool. What's even more powerful though is automating status. So anything that we can automate will actually move work through the pipeline for you automatically. So when Jacob opens a pull request that has a real code to fix a real problem, we'll move that work to in progress for you. So during daily stand-up, it's not this ceremony of having to go update the tool to reflect reality. You actually know at any time during the day in real time where your work actually is. Same thing when pull requests are merged. Oftentimes when teams use continuous delivery, merging means that they're actually shipping to production. So Waffle will actually see that and move it from a done column to a production column. So in real time, you're seeing real work move across the board going into production environments. So super powerful. We asked ourselves, how powerful is that actually? So we looked at metrics behind WaffleBot. So WaffleBot is our robot. It's not quite a cobot that you'll hear about soon. It's a robot working behind the scenes that's doing all these actions for you. So it's hundreds of thousands of actions a month that we're doing on behalf of thousands of teams. And yeah, like dragging a card across the board, what, 3-4 seconds? But it's those distractions, right? It's a project manager having to ask like, hey, did you update your status? And pulling a developer out of context, making them go log into a tool, move it across. So these hundreds of thousands of actions that Waffle's doing on your behalf saves countless developer effort and frustration. Developers hate updating their status. Why don't we just automate it? That's what we're trying to do. When I talked about our purpose, I left out a critical piece. Yeah, we're about aligning dev teams. That's really awesome. But dev teams rarely work in isolation. Dev teams are working part of a large organization. So Waffle's purpose is also to align those teams with that larger company. And that's why, to that end, we've actually built an integration to CA Agile Central. So CA Agile Central, world-class way to create a portfolio and program plans so that your whole company can stay aligned at the initiative level. What's hard though is it relies on data, right? So you need your teams to be updating their status for this plans to be accurate, to know that this 33% done on this portfolio item, is that actually accurate? It is if your teams are updating their status. Now with Waffle, with our integration in real time, as you're moving work across the board automatically, Waffle is actually sharing that status up to that portfolio level. So dev teams can now use Waffle and GitHub to track their work where they're happier and they get their status. And in real time, you're seeing progress at your initiative level. So teams can adopt Waffle, but still stay aligned at that company level. So this integration is in beta. We're piloting with a couple Agile Central customers. But so far, we're really excited about what this might open the door to in the future. I'll leave it with this quote that we're connecting developers to project managers, and also an ask. We have Waffle socks outside the door. You should totally get a pair.
They're awesome.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. It's been fun to meet everybody and have some good conversations. Looking to chat a little bit more this afternoon. My name is Marc Chipouras, and I am the co-founder of another one of these accelerator startups. We started about a little bit over a year ago. If you look at the chart that Otto was showing here, we were in the Series A, so building an MVP as we go through this. Now, I came to the accelerator, came to CA through the Rally software acquisition, and at Rally, I was building all of the tools in order to understand how their SaaS application was stable, making sure that we were monitoring how it was up and running, and understanding how their users were using the system. And so spent 10 years kind of building data systems for Rally. So every time we turned, there was a new thing to understand. And as I go through that process, what I realized is there's something really irked me. It was when I got most frustrated when a problem could be solved. You just had to correlate some data together. You need to make sure you had access to the right data, and you need to see that data. And if you had access to all the data, it probably is obvious to solve. But I saw so many people just churning and churning and churning and not being able to solve whether it's operations issues, whether it's developer performance issues, or even usability issues, what's going on with my product. It's really where I realized that my passion is about getting the right data to the right people at the right time so they can solve those problems. And that's what I spent 10 years at Rally doing, and I'm doing now here at Freshtracks. And so at Rally, we had kind of some tenets of observability. What did it mean in order to make sure, what did we have to do in order to make sure we had the right data, the right people? And so it means we need to be measuring by default. And so all our applications and all our infrastructures needed to be built in from the ground up, where measurement was coming through, so we could see and understand what they were doing, and it wasn't an action by a developer or an operator in order to make that happen. And all that measurement or observation needed to be universally accessible. So product owners, operations, developers all needed to see that, and they really needed to see it so not only could they correlate the information and solve problems in real time, but so they can use that data in order to solve problem, or in order to make decisions on about where they're going with their product, where they're going with their operation. Is this successful? Is the story that I've written successful? Is it happening in production? And we needed to make sure that we were using the exact same tools throughout the pipeline. So if you're deploying in staging, you're deploying in test, and deploying in production, we want to have the exact same monitoring and observation tools all across the pipeline, so you get muscle memory on how to use those tools and how to use those tools to communicate across silos. And these principles really came up to, are really the genesis of what we call our culture of observability. And this is something I really believe in. If engineers and operators and products are all focused on measurement and understanding their system, that is what we call a culture of observability, and that can be the basis of their work patterns moving forward. It's the basis for their communication. It's the basis of really the basis of DevOps, where DevOps, the fundamental communication across silos, is all based on measurement and observation. If you don't have that measurement, that communication can be muted. And we can do all the things we want to put people on the same team, but if the measurement's not the same across there, that's our basis for communication. So at Rally, as we were going, we had all these things. We had this culture of observability. It was the engine behind our DevOps structure, but something happened along the way. We felt like we were churning along, we had all this measurement, understood visibility within our systems, but as engineers, we constantly moved forward and started following new architectural patterns. We broke our monolith into microservices. We spread things out. They were distributed across multiple clouds. And our applications were no longer static with a name that lives over here on this server, but they're actually moving around the cloud, and the names are changing frequently. And all of these things which were good in order to enable our architecture to move forward and allowed us to be more distributed as teams and work faster, also reduced our visibility. And this culture of observability was kind of lost. We lost some of that communication between our teams, became a little less agile, a little less DevOps as we move down that path. And these were the industry trends that we're seeing everywhere today, right? Where we're seeing monoliths going to microservices, new deployment, rapid deployment techniques where we're deploying minutes or hours, not days or weeks, right? And systems are super dynamic. And we're seeing new technologies come onto the space in order to address these new architectures. So we can deploy quickly because it's the same deployment container in Docker. We're going to deploy that again and again. And we can put that into a Kubernetes ecosystem so it's orchestrated and it moves around. But the monitoring tools are not the same. There is not a single solution in order to solve how do I get visibility across my distributed systems. The systems that were out there, that were moving along, they didn't understand the microservice interactions, and they didn't really handle the ephemeral services which were coming and going very well, and couldn't handle the multitude of metrics that were coming in. And then we learned that at Rally as we were kind of along this process, and really this is the seeds of why we started Freshtracks a little over a year ago, in order to solve these problems, these real pains that we were experiencing in the marketplace. So Freshtracks, we're a tool. We're designed for both operators and developers, really crossing that bridge. We're going to be there as your system is evolving and changing. That's very important. We're going to use the context of your microservices in order to correlate the infrastructure and the application metrics together. We really want to provide actionable alerts so you can make your system stable and available and understand what's going on. In short, Freshtracks simplifies Kubernetes visibility, and that's really where we're focused. We're doing that a few ways. So we are a SaaS-based metrics collection system based on open source technologies. From the ground up, we're integrating what Kubernetes knows about the system directly into our metrics collection and radiation and machine learning. And then we're using machine learning to enrich the data sets that we're actually pulling back so they can be more useful for developers and operators. So yeah, we're a SaaS version of open source tool. SaaS is great because there's a low barrier to entry. We have a one-click deployment in order to kind of get you up and going, collecting from your systems. We are providing all the operations for your metrics collection, so we're offloading that. So there's no maintenance associated with it. The operations cost is less, and we can guarantee uptime because that's what we do. We host SaaS metric systems. And rather than you dealing with the data storage problems of having years of data, we'll actually handle all the long-term storage for you. So we're based off an open source technology called Prometheus, all right? And Prometheus is a high-performance time series database as well as an alert manager that's really coming to the forefront of the cloud-native computing pattern that's out there. Prometheus was started from some engineers at some ex-Google engineers who went to SoundCloud, and they wrote this time series database, and it's all based off the patterns that they learned from Google as they were monitoring the cloud infrastructure at Google. Prometheus is the dominant cloud-native monitoring pattern, and it was actually accepted into the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. It was the second project after Kubernetes that was accepted. And what we're seeing is we're seeing the popularity of Prometheus skyrocket in the industry, just like we're seeing the adoption of Kubernetes. So over 60% of all people who are using Kubernetes today are actually using Prometheus to monitor their systems. And at Freshtracks, we make Prometheus better. Part of the way we do that is we're making sure we're collecting metrics from your entire orchestrated container infrastructure. So we get from the infrastructure nodes, we understand what's going on with Kubernetes, we get all the information regarding the containers, then the cells, and then the applications it's collecting. So we're collecting across, or the applications that are running in those containers. So we're collecting across that entire infrastructure and application ecosystem and using these new metrics, which are so important in these cloud-native architectures. We're adding context to your Kubernetes metrics so you know how they fit together and we can find those relationships. And we're auto-creating dashboards so that as soon as you step in, as soon as you install, we can actually put your containers in context of their workload. We know how they're working the namespace. We know which containers are on which physical nodes or which applications are on which physical nodes. We're correlating that by default. But it's not just enough to collect the metrics. We have to actually provide some insight from this, and this is where we're really focusing our machine learning efforts. We're doing that by providing adaptive thresholds. We're doing anomaly detection. Proactively aggregating across the cluster. It's not interesting to know how one container is performing. You actually need to know how they're performing in concert. So we're aggregating to provide those insights. And then we're providing understanding the service-to-service relationships. And what's unique about us is a lot of times we see people in the industry who their machine learning is not necessarily available for the operators and developers. But we're taking the outputs of what we're learning about your system and we're writing back into the Prometheus data store so that people can use the common tools that they are using already, Grafana, their alerting, and actually use that machine learning in whatever processes they want. So we're writing back into the data store. I got to talk a little bit about the math because this is really kind of a fun area here. I've got 2 PhDs who are on my team, and they're really having a field day right now because they're pulling from mathematical techniques from a number of different academic fields, and they're applying them to our time series data and really learning a lot. And so some of that's quantum mechanics, speech recognition, and even behavioral psychology is actually, all those are being applied in our product today. As I mentioned earlier, we're built on top of open source. And building on top of open source is great, but if we're not getting back to that community, we're being a little disingenuous. And so within the Accelerator, I have the opportunity to make sure that we're giving back. So the key tools that we're working with are Prometheus, Kubernetes, Grafana, and Cortex. And everybody on my team is committing to these projects. In fact, I actually have 2 members on my team who are maintainers on the Cortex project and moving along that way. And we're hosting community calls, we're dealing with mailing lists. We're actually being involved in the community through special interest groups and that type of thing. It's a really rewarding thing for me as well as all the engineers on our team. So Freshtracks is building tools to enable this culture of observability, which has been so important in my career. And we want to do it for teams today and tomorrow moving forward. So that's me. Thank you so much.
I'd like to ask again, we're running behind, so if we could just do our questions at the very end. Both Andrew and Marc will be available for one-on-ones following this and can answer any questions, but we are running a little bit behind. We're gonna jump right into the research and then open it up for a bigger
Yeah, can we
Q&A.
switch decks?
Who's running?
Oh, yeah.